Welcome back. And if you're stopping by for the first time, welcome to a space where we talk about finding joy, choosing peace, and living life with intention. If you missed the first part of my conversation with Sean Terwilliger, I encourage you to start there. Sean talks about what it feels like to hear you have Alzheimer's disease. In part 2, Sean reveals the surprising results of a blood test and why he no longer qualifies for clinical trials. We also have a candid conversation about a difficult subject, Sean's thoughts on being in control of the end of his life. It's an honest and uplifting and hopeful conversation. I hope you'll join me.
It's the Don't Be a Miserable Cow podcast with your host, Lisa Marshall.
Today's guest is Sean Terwilliger. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2024. Sean is a writer, blogger, and Alzheimer's activist who is openly documenting his Alzheimer's journey. Sean is 62 years old, retired, married, a father of 2, and a grandfather of 2. He's a traveler, music lover, and storyteller. Sean has chosen to use his voice in a powerful way by telling his story, advocating for change, and sharing openly on his blog, the Alts blog. And he has a new book, Alts Fired Up. I love his passion, and I can't wait for you to meet him.
My good neurologist, now only neurologist, said to me, look, this is not going to be apples to apples, but the best you're going to be able to do right now is take the newly approved amyloid blood test. So the results of that blood test were that I do not qualify for having an Alzheimer's diagnosis anymore.
That's incredible.
It is.
Oh my God. So when you got the results of that, what were you thinking?
Oh my God, there's like the weight off of my shoulders.
That's insane.
Is huge. And you know, I want to be really clear. I have Alzheimer's.
Yes.
Right? Like, I need to be clear for the people who are watching this.
Yeah.
I'm not
it's
going
not
in here saying I'm cured.
It's not
nothing.
A cure.
You know, this is something I will have to, I'm in remission and at best case,
wow.
Right? They're not calling it anything because nobody's talking about this yet, right?
So let me ask you this from a symptomatic point of view. When you and Wendy first noticed these little misses that you continue to have since your TIA, do you feel that you still are having them?
Much less.
Much less.
Much.
Anything else that you notice that feels better, feels more like old Sean?
Well, let me, as I am wont to do, broaden that question out a little bit, because one of the things my now only good neurologist in Boston said to me in our first visit, where I sat with him for over 2 hours, by the way.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Never having spent more than 10 minutes in an office with the other guy.
It's unheard of.
I sat with this guy for 2 hours because his next patient canceled and we kept going.
That's incredible.
Okay. One of the things he said to me was, has anyone ever told you might have a touch of ADD as well? And I said, after I could get heard again over my wife hysterically laughing in the next chair because she's been telling me she thought I had ADD for a million years.
Since day one.
Met you. And the reality of it is I've always known it to a certain extent. But he said, look, he gave me an hour-long neurocog exam in that very first visit. By the way, my good neurologist never gave me a test. I have talked to dozens of people who have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's in the 2 years that I've been dealing with this. Every one of them had a multi-hour neurocog battery done to them.
Yes. Peter had, I think it was 10 hours.
Yeah.
It was 2 different days.
Yeah.
He came home after the first day weeping and said, please don't make me go back there. And I said, you're going to go back and I'm going to go with you and I will sit with you.
Yeah. I've done them all, but through clinical trials.
Yeah.
This man never did another test on me. I got the failed amyloid PET scan, results that I read off of the neurologist, no centiloid score, and a diagnosis of Alzheimer's.
So where do you go from here? Are there
Okay.
more medications?
So-
Is it lifestyle, nutrition, exercise?
So my goal with this, I never wanted to go on the maintenance dose of lecanemab, right? Because
Why?
being on lecanemab precludes you from most of the clinical trials, medically based clinical trials that are out there. When you're on the gold standard of medicine, that is altering your brain as it works, you skew data results.
Yeah.
I get it. It makes total sense.
Sure.
I had been approved for a clinical trial for a nasal spray that was going to look at inflammation of the microglia of the brainstem. Okay. And so they were going to let me do it, and were actually happy that I was on Leqembi because of it, because they, so I do not believe there will be a pill or a shot or an infusion that cures Alzheimer's. I think it's way too complicated. I liken it back to the cure for AIDS back in the 90s, when we had to come up with a cocktail of drugs that worked together to combat the multiple things that were happening in the body with that disease, right?
Sure.
I'm convinced it's going to be the same with this. So I'm not looking for a pill. So my belief, and the people who are running this trial apparently believe too, that everybody's going to be on an anti-amyloid medication. We've got to develop something that works in conjunction with an anti-amyloid medication. And who better to have in a trial is somebody on an anti-amyloid medication, right? And we want some with, some without, so we could see what the efficacy of the drug is. It makes perfect sense to me, right? So I was approved for that trial. I had to do PET scans for which they never gave me. I had one. After treatment, I had a PET scan. One of the problems with clinical trials is they don't share your data, right? I call them. I'm like, look, just tell me what it says. You know, I don't need, just, I'll die in here. But I don't know the answer. But then I had another PET scan with the new investigational thing that they're doing to look for this brainstem microglia. And I actually didn't have enough brain inflammation.
Because of Leqembi?
No, not because Leqembi doesn't target that at all.
Okay, so just because.
Well, there's several things I think that have affected that. So anyway, I don't qualify for any clinical trials anymore.
Okay, but that's
is
fantastic.
It's a good problem to have, except my entire life plan is shot, right? Because I was planning to really start investigating all of these novel treatments and keep everything down. So anyway, one of the other things that I did early on in my path to looking for things that help was I had an infusion of something called exosomes.
Okay.
Exosomes are like stem cells. They are not stem cells, but they're in the same family of information delivering agents that work in the body. Okay. I'm not a scientist. I don't know much more to say. I've read a lot.
You're starting to sound like one.
It's weird. The thing about exosomes is they cross the blood-brain barrier. Stem cells do not. One of the first things I started getting into was, stem cell treatment. I'm going to go look at that because that's radical, right? And I found a group of people out in San Diego who are doing really novel stem cell research where they harvest your own stem cells, alter them, put a shunt in the back of your head and re-inject to pass the blood-brain and re-inject your own stem cells right back into you. And I spoke to them and I was like, I'm in.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. I'll do it. I'll do anything. I don't want to have Alzheimer's, right? This is a desperation moment in my life, right? And they said to me, unfortunately, we need you to be at stage 2 or more,
so you don't
because we need to, this is even back at the beginning though. We need you to be worse because we really need to be able to have quantify, our goal is to make our people like you are now.
Right.
Yeah. Which is not 100%, but if we can get somebody who's at 40% to 80%, then our therapy is a success. Right? It's a lot like repairing blind people's vision, right? They're not going to have 20/20 ever, but if they could see something, that's a success, right? So exosomes cross the blood-brain barrier. They do not do anything but reduce inflammation. And I had an exosome infusion.
When did you have that?
I had probably in, I can look exactly, but I'm going to say it was I started my treatment in September on Leqembi. So I would say in November, December, January, something around that. Was early.
Okay.
I didn't feel any great awakening from it. But I will tell you that there has never been a day since I started any of this process. I felt mentally badly, right? That I felt like I was getting worse. Right. And so again, in this disease of non-quantifiables, I've always said, I'm not getting worse.
Yeah.
Right. That's the only litmus that I have to all of the work that I've done. It's been 2 years. I know people who've been on treatment for 2 years and are getting worse.
We talked about fear and what you're scared of.
Yes.
What parts of yourself are you determined to hold on to?
I want to be me for as long as I can.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if I've said this. If I have, it bears repeating. When the drugs come to cure this disease, I want to take them and remain who I am. Yeah. Right. And that there are, aside from the family of dementias out there, there's no other disease that I'm aware of that steals you. Right?
Yes.
Now, many diseases, as we get closer and closer to our demise, we lose our memories. We might lose our spatial awareness, our place on the planet. But that's when we're in hospice care or in the final weeks,
sure,
per se. But we know who our family is. We know what we've done. We are content or not with our lives. I knew from the get-go that I never wanted to be without self. Right. So one of the very first things I did was start researching death. Because I was not going to ever, and still am never going to go into a memory care unit. It's not going to happen. And the sad thing about that is none of the medical aid and dying laws that are passing across America are ever going to include anyone with dementia. Because in order to get them passed, and I've said, I'll advocate for you guys too. I'll go stand up and talk to Congress about this, how important it is. And I'm a really good person to do it because I'm actively doing everything that I can to stay alive, right? I am not rolling over and hunting for death here, but I want a dignified end when it's my time. And I want to be able to choose that, right? So because we can't do that, we have to make some really terrible choices. And one of those choices is actually choosing to make your end time happen while you're still okay.
Right.
And
while you can still participate in your life.
Yep. While you have to wake up one day and judge yourself and go, this is the point where I'm crossing over the litmus. To where I'm not going to be deemed competent to make that decision anymore. And that could be weeks or months. But I went to a talk very early on, and one of the quotes that really resonated and hung with me is, you're going to have to give up some good days so you don't have to have a lot of bad ones.
Yeah.
And I've lived that.
What are some memories that you want to hold on to?
Oh, God, I've lived a really good life, Lisa. I have traveled the world. I have met wonderful people. I have loved hard. I have lived hard. I don't want to give up any of them.
Yeah.
You know, that is just so hard to conceptualize what, would I put something on a scale and say I'd be content to give up,
I'll give up these memories.
This dog versus, this kid, maybe, but sometimes I don't know, but, but the reality of it is I want to die knowing that I loved me and that I loved who I was and who I lived with and who I loved.
Yeah.
And I loved what I did.
And Wendy, your wife, she's been a huge support. I know. Yeah. I met her the same day I met you. How's she feeling? What is she afraid of?
Wendy has a much more palpable tie to memories than I do. So even though I say it's a really important thing for her, the physicality of things is really important. So we have boxes of our kids' clothes and, things like that. And I'm like, why are we carrying this around forever? Because one day I may want to look at it. And, so I know that she will miss me because we make each other whole, right? I mean, we are, I write a lot about this in the book and on the blog is the devastating effect on you,
the
right?
Caregiver.
The caregiver,
the
spouse. I come up with a special name for them in the book, because I wasn't happy calling them caregivers.
Can you share it with me?
I can, sure. It's a Finnish word, and it's sisu.
Okay.
And that is one who perseveres when all hope is lost, stoically carrying on when there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And I believe that spousal caregivers, and only spousal caregivers, are sisu. We all grieve our parents, siblings, aunts. I'm a caregiver to my aunt. And I love her dearly, and I am not sisu to her. Right? I am not going to grieve for her the way you grieved for Peter, the way Wendy will grieve for me. It's a different thing. We at some point in our lives, we give ourselves to a human being, right? Family, we share ourselves with, right? I'm being very upper level in talking about, but when, and we're not all lucky enough to be 30, or I don't know how long you were married to Peter, to have that depth of care after a lengthy marriage. And for some people, sadly, you may be spoused to someone who you are caregiving for and not be sisu, right? But you're still going to give care if you can, right? Or in some cases you don't, and you pass them off to other people because that's all you have the wherewithal to do, right? And I don't judge any of that, right?
But it's not for you.
It's not, putting that on her is not for me. Right? She's already sisu and I'm not even bad, right? Because she is living every day with the knowledge of what is to come, right? She knows what is in store for me potentially, right? And so she supports me in my fight to not have that happen.
What about your children?
I have 2 children, and at this is tough, and I'm not 100% sure how much of this I want. I'll tell you, and then maybe we could talk about it offline. One of my children has been completely uninvolved. He's my stepchild, and he lost his bio dad when he was 16, and he has a really difficult relationship with death. And so his choice has been completely to not invest himself in this process. While I think he cares, he doesn't read my blog. He doesn't ask about the book. He doesn't invest himself in anything. And it hurts me every day and deeply.
Can I just share my experience with that? Peter and I have 5 children, and each one of them dealt with his diagnosis very differently. And for a while, I wanted them all to deal with it the way I wanted them to deal with it. You should be here. You should be calling. You should be spending every moment with him. You should, is what was going on in my brain. Something clicked one day, and I was very agitated and I was very anxious about all of that. And I kept thinking, you're going to have regrets if you're not here with your dad. But they all didn't feel that way. They all felt differently. They wanted, I don't know what they wanted, but they didn't want the same thing that I wanted.
Right.
And the moment that I finally released that thought for myself, that stress for me went away.
Yeah.
And I just respected where each one of the kids was in the process of his decline and ultimately his death. And I love them all dearly. And everyone deals with it differently.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to put your head in the sand if you can't deal with it the way that someone else can.
That is so wonderful for you to say. And I really do appreciate that. And it will make me think, because one of the things that makes me sad about that, though, is I'm actually the best person I have ever been in my entire life. And
Why? Let's explore that a little bit.
Well, because I have something that I really deeply care about, and I am striving to be the best, most giving, full person that I have been. You know, I don't know how else to really, but I feel sad that he's missing that.
Yeah.
Right? That by his withdrawal, he isn't getting, he's maybe living in fear of my death, right? But he's not getting to see, back at the beginning, I wrote a blog post every week, sometimes multiple, and I poured my heart out into those. Those early posts are filled with the pain and I really wanted, validation's not the right word, but I was looking for people to connect with about
you want
that.
to be seen. I felt like I wanted a witness.
Yeah.
Look what's happening. Look what's happening to us.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then you saw that in my other son's post and
I want to talk about that.
Yeah. And
now's a good time.
Yeah. So he is my bio son, not with Wendy. So both of us are in our second marriage. She brought one in. I brought one in. We have none together. And he lives in Arizona. And so we have a distance thing that makes life very difficult.
Yeah.
But the first 3 months, he called me 3 times a day. Oh. I mean, he was really good. And as life took over for him, and as I started needing less support, he pulled back a little too far for me.
Yeah.
And I've said that, like I don't see a heart sign on a blog post from you now anymore. Like, are you even reading them? Sometimes I don't get to them. And I say, this is super important to me. This is my life. I'm doing this also for you.
So that you can keep up with what's happening.
You know what's going on. And I will say that I would not be writing at all, however, if it was not for the woman who is now his wife, who was then his girlfriend, not even his fiance at this point, but his girlfriend. I had never met her. They had been together a couple of weeks. I got diagnosed. I called him, and he had a really hard time with it. The next day I get something in my email that says, Madeline, that's her name, has subscribed you to something called Storyworth. The email didn't say something called Storyworth.
Yeah.
But Storyworth is a memoir generator, and it is for terminal people to write a book about their history. Wow. And her dad had prostate cancer, and she had gotten him this for himself, and he wrote his memoir through that book. And she gave it to me. And I was like, that is just if that is not the sweetest
so
thing
thoughtful.
and most thoughtful thing ever. And I started writing my memoir, and this was all about the past. This was like, here's what I did when I was a kid. Here's this. Here's my relationship with music, and here's the a fun vacation I took. And those are the levels of things that go on through Storyworth, right? It feeds you a question, and you answer
so
it, right?
You. Yeah.
And in many cases, I looked at the questions and I was like, I'm not writing about that. It has nothing to do with me. I'll write my own question. Or I then reached out to friends and family and say, hey, send me questions that I can feed in that you want me to answer, right? But about 3 months into Storyworth, I went, oh man, I got something to say about now. Yeah. And I'm feeling like I'm starting to get empowered by stuff, right? And I don't want to just write about the past anymore. I want to write about what's happening now. And that's when I started Al's blog. And so together they went in conjunction, and I would, alternate my writing time between writing something about my history in Storyworth and something about now in Al's blog. And it was such a great outlet for me. And it really was the thing that made me heal as a human being, right? Truly was the thing. And when I finished after a year my Storyworth, I got a note from the company that said, "You've written one of the longest Storyworths that anyone has ever done."
I'm shocked.
Congratulations.
What did you, when you read Jonas's post?
Yeah.
On your blog?
Moving. Yeah.
Because he talked about not only your relationship as father and son, but your relationship as friends.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Wait,
was,
are your eyes tearing up?
A little bit. That's goop. That's allergies. It was an incredibly moving thing. And he called me and he said, "Can I write something?" And I said, "Absolutely. I will make you an editor of the blog. Like you can do whatever you want. This is now for us." And I did the same for Wendy, who wrote another beautiful post too. And that kind of stuff means so much when it happens, when you have that level of support and care given to you. And you must know, you've raised kids, when your kid does something that's just a mitzvah, when you go, "Hi, God."
Yeah.
Yes.
You're so proud.
I did.
There's no feeling.
It felt really, really good. And I was happy it was posted and happy he did it, and, really appreciative of that.
After diagnosis, did people treat you differently?
Yes and no. Interestingly, you get a lot of, "You don't seem like you have dementia. You don't look like a demented person."
It's the worst thing for a caregiver to hear. Yeah. I'll tell you right now, is that oftentimes in later stages, someone with dementia can go somewhere and they'll put on a show. It's called show timing. They use all of their energy to look normal. And then when they go home after the party or after the gathering or whatever, they're wasted. They have no energy and they fall apart. And who's there to support them? Yeah. The caregiver. The worst thing that a caregiver can hear is, "Oh my God, he seems so great. I think he's getting better."
Yeah.
And, this is 4 years ago, before any treatment whatsoever was available. And it's like, as a caregiver, you don't feel seen. You don't feel heard by what you're dealing with and the experiences that you're having.
And so that's one of the things we're trying to do by our speaking, by our doing this conversation, by the talks that I give, by the book that I'm writing, the blog, is to say, look, we are okay for a time.
Yeah.
We will be okay for a time. And I don't know what I would have done if I had dementia 5 years ago. Right. If I didn't have the beacon of hope that was the drug that I'm on, I don't know how I would have managed that. I can't even quantify the pain you guys went through. My life is insignificant in comparison to the pain you went through. And
the research that's been done and everything that's culminated since Peter's death in 2021, only 4.5 years ago, is amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've talked to several people who are on the infusion, one or the other, and it's remarkable to see the leveling out. I mean, it's incredible.
And the fact is, there's still people out there naysaying the drugs.
I mean, I know there's side effects. I don't know.
Not even the side effects, though. They're just saying they don't, because there's no they've done a terrible job of quantifying this stuff.
Well, your own neurologist said that it's hard to quantify it.
But they could, I called Biogen,
well, the PET scan,
right?
Oh
I called Biogen and I said, I'm happy to stand on a pedestal for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to stand on a platform. I'm happy to go on a news program. I am happy to tell the world that your drug worked for me.
Yeah.
I always couch everything.
Yeah.
Right. I don't ever sit and tell a story about what treatment works or doesn't work without saying, this is my experience. I'm not a trained medical professional.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I just talked to a guy on the phone the other day. He's like, what do you do? And I said, these are the things I do. Are they going to work for you? I don't know.
Exactly.
You're not going to know until you try them.
It's it's been my experience, and here's what happened to me.
Right.
I don't know. This might work for you too.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's very important, I think, that people in our position do that, because there's legalities, of course, but there's also, I don't want to present as someone who knows by anything other tthan personal experience.
Right.
Because this is personal.
It is personal, and it's been amazing for you, right?
Yeah. But back to, I know you've known people who are reading after taking Leqembi, and it does work. I also know people who aren't. And that's what the naysayers get into is it all depends on your own brain, when they catch it, how far along, I caught it before I even knew I had it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I talked to so many other advocates who, I was driving home from the grocery store and I got lost. And that was my first, instance of knowing it, or I forgot my kids' names or something that, is really vital. Right. And I'm like, I said, 3 times in a sentence.
You're deep into the disease at that point.
Yeah. And so I don't know what the drug does for you at that point.
Right. How has your diagnosis changed the way that you and Wendy navigate life together?
It's really interesting. We made plans to really live.
Yeah.
Right. And then I let this research and writing, and first of all, the medication, you have to be home every 2 weeks. Right. So long trips are out of the question.
Right.
I could change that now, right? We could go for 6 months somewhere, and we may just very well do that.
Nice. Because you're finished with the infusions.
Because I'm finished with the infusions, and I don't have anything particularly medically to tie me down to anything.
Sure.
We have that opportunity, whether we'll do it or not, or not. We changed how we looked at the future in a really negative way.
Okay.
Right? Because you have a long-term plan, right? Presuming everyone does at some point if you think about it, right? And that plan is hopefully longer than this, right? So we immediately, we changed all our financial holdings, our investment strategies, we put our house into an irrevocable trust. We, even though I know I don't want to go into a care facility, we wanted to make sure that everything was going to be safe.
Yep.
And really planned to try to live for now as best as we could.
Yeah.
Didn't always come into view because my life took over, right?
Yeah,
This took over for me. But on the other hand, if I had been working a full-time job, I wouldn't have been able to do this, right?
Right.
I wouldn't have been, when I applied for Social Security disability, when I first applied, they were like, you could go, you could get a menial job somewhere. You're fine enough to, and I'm like, I could spend, no offense to anyone who does this, please. Yeah. I could spend my last 10 years on life being a greeter at Walmart, and that's going to be okay. No, it's not going to be okay with me. And so I got a lawyer and I fought and I got Social Security disability but that also gave me the opportunity to become the man I am today, right? Because I had nothing tying me back from going into work, I could go to any medical appointment I needed to. I could sit in front of the computer all day writing whatever stuff, advocating. I could go to Boston to advocate or whatever, or to Washington, D.C., where I'm going in 2 weeks to be part of the Alzheimer's Association Forum. I'm the ambassador to one of our state representatives to Congress now. I have the time and energy for this. And Wendy has the time and energy to do the things that she loves. We're an interesting couple because we both love different things and always have supported each other in doing those different things. We have the things that we love to do together, right? Yeah. We love to travel. We travel really well together. We do things together. We love to be together. But if Wendy wants to go birding, she can go birding. Right. And she has the time to do that. But there was a point when we were like, okay, how do we plan when Sean can't be at home by himself? Mm-hmm. And I've always said, I'm never going to be at that stage. Yeah. The day that I can't be home by myself, and I know people who live that stage and are happy. And so I cast no judgment, right? Everybody's path in this is the path that they're going to take and do it their way. So my path for me has never included a locked door, or not being able to take my grandchild out for ice cream because somebody was scared I wouldn't know my way home. Yeah.
It's no way to live.
It's no way to live. And yet many people do that. Yes. Right. And many people really, and many caretakers really support people doing that. And
there isn't really much of an option.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to go to Zurich.
Well, or starve yourself to death, which is the only legal way to do it in America. Yeah. Which for some reason they'll allow, but they won't let me take a pill.
Right. When people hear your story, whether it's your blog, your book, a podcast, what do you hope they take with them?
That trying actually works.
You're a fighter.
Yeah. Fighting is necessary, but there are results to be had from it. I don't promise anyone the results that I had, right? I mean, I can't do that, but I can tell you that without the fight, I would not be. I'm going to spoil the book for you because the last line of the book is, who would I have been without the fight? And that's what I want. When I talk to people who have been diagnosed, when I talk to people who are caretaking people, it is, look, if you crawl into the hole, you're gonna crawl into the hole, right?
Stay there.
There is no question that you are going to crawl into the hole. You've got to find your way out. My way out was writing an advocacy and fighting. Yours may not be, but you still have to find it, right? My way is not the best way. It's the best way for me.
For you.
Right? But for you, what brings you joy?
Hey, that's my line.
I know. What brings you? I'm not, but it works for me too. I mean, it is for me as well. And I'm not trying to crib your moment here. But what brings you joy, do it. And you will find, hopefully, tangible results from doing that.
You have found joy.
Absolutely.
In the middle of an Alzheimer's diagnosis, which is incredible. And you're one of the most passionate people I've ever met. Thank you so much for being here.
It's been a joy to be here.
I'm so grateful that you were here to chat with me today. And I know that you've touched so many people by this conversation.
Hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know someone who could benefit from hearing this conversation? Please share it with them. You could be the exact support that they need. That's it for today. Thank you for spending some of your day with us. And remember, we all have a choice. Choose joy, choose peace, and don't be a miserable cow. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for spending this time with us on the Don't Be a Miserable Cow podcast with your host, Lisa Marshall. If you're looking for a little more guidance or encouragement, you can find Lisa's books, Find Joy, No Regrets, and Oh, Hello, Alzheimer's. And if you'd like to support the show or learn more about Lisa and her guests, visit us at joywithlisa.com.